Recording is on.
There we go. There it is. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual book release party of Bianca A. Smith's Triangle. We have Bianca here with us today, as well as her friend Sam Bruschi, who will be helping us with this event. I just want to say on the side, in brilliant Olympia fashion, I marketed this event at 3 p.m. On Orca's social media platforms when we had actually agreed on 5 p.m. So if there was confusion, I apologize. That was my bad. Classic Orca books. As a reminder, you can purchase this book at our store in the downtown Olympia location, as well as on Bianca's website. I put in a little link in the chat box to the left of your screens. Let's see. Bianca Annalisa Smith was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. Throughout her life, Bianca recognized the pivotal impacts physical and mental health played in hers and her family's lives. This led her down a path towards leadership in food justice and public health initiatives as a registered dietitian. In her work, Bianca has fought to enhance children's access to healthy food and has helped institutions build healthier environments that promote environmental sustainability and equitable access to educational opportunities. With her writing, Bianca amplifies issues in the LGBTQ plus community. I should know that one, I'm part of it, as well as other social justice issues. Sam Bruschi is Bianca's dear friend and colleague who has been her biggest supporter over the past year with this book and with life in general. For this event, we advise to press the tile view button at the bottom of your screen to see Bianca and Sam full screen. I know Bianca is going to be doing some screen sharing as well, so that's going to be a lot of fun. We plan to record this event, as you heard. So if you don't want to appear on video, please make sure your camera is disabled. You can do this at the bottom of your screen. Also, make sure to enter your name. And yeah, Bianca and Sam, I give the floor to you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Jonah. It's been so interesting to do it virtually. So thank you so much for having us. And thank you to everyone for joining us here today. Just as a quick reminder before we dive in, Bianca's doing a wonderful little raffle drawing at the end of the event tonight for this Pacific Northwest care package. And I believe she's showing it on her screen. I can't quite see that. Oh, yeah, she's giving me the thumbs up. So it's on the screen. And so you'll want to stick around for that. There are a number of different goodies in the care package, all purchased from local businesses in Olympia, Washington, I should say, which is the primary setting for the story Triangle. There is also a signed copy of Bianca's book included in the basket, and if you RSVP'd and you're here, your name was automatically entered into the drawing. If you ordered the book already, your name was added a second time, so you got 2 for 1 there. And if you're not sure if you've RSVP'd on Facebook on the event page or Bianca's website, no worries. Bianca is also adding your names to the raffle. She's been doing it since we've gotten started today. So we're excited to go ahead and get started with a little bit of Q&A. So Bianca's going to minimize her screen share, and I'm going to make sure I have the correct questions in front of me.
Good I totally forgot that. Okay, I think I did it.
All right, Bianca, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for your event today. Let's get everyone acquainted with you a little bit better. So the first question I want to ask you is, how'd you get into writing?
Well, ever since I was in about 4th grade, I have just loved writing. I started keeping a journal when I was very young, and I wrote in it every single day for many, many years. And it was like a very detailed journal. It was like, this is exactly what I did today. And I would actually write at the end of each journal entry, and that is what I did today. And draw a little picture at the bottom of what I did that day too. I was a bizarre child, but anyways, so I started writing in journals, and then as I got older, I started writing more short stories and poetry, and I think it was 7th grade, the teacher had given us an assignment to write a short story and include all of the vocabulary words we had learned recently. And at their fault, they did not give a page limit. So I went home and I wrote a 20-page long short story, including all the vocabulary words. And then the next, when the paper was due, before the teacher had looked at any of them or collected them, they invited a student to volunteer and get up in front of the class and read their story. And so, of course, you know me, Sam. I volunteered and I got up in front of the class, and about 15 minutes later, I had finished reading my short story in front of the class. And I don't know if that was what the teacher had expected, but I did get a lot of kudos from the other kids in my class because no one else actually had to get up and read their story. So, so I love to write. I've always loved to write. I've just been drawn to it. But then when as I got older, I decided, I need to pick a serious career, which is, I thought writing wasn't a serious enough career. I didn't think I could make a living. And I wanted to do something where I could help people. And I didn't feel like I could help people through writing at that time. And so I decided to get into public health, and I went to school to become a registered dietitian, and I've been working in public health for over 6 years now, and I love it. I don't regret any of it, but I did, in the last couple of years, I looked back on that joy that writing brought me, and I realized that I had spent a lot of my adult life filling it with things that really didn't make me happy. Oops, my phone is going off here real quick. And so I decided, I'm going to sit down and I'm actually going to try to write something. So I had the idea for writing Triangle probably a year before I even started writing anything. But as soon as I started writing it, it just kind of fell right out of my brain. And it was, I hate to say this because, most writers would probably cringe when I say this, but it just came naturally. It was not difficult for me to write in the sense that I felt like I could write it and it wasn't hard to write. Of course, the nature of what I wrote, it was very difficult in other ways, but I guess that's a good overview of how I got into writing.
Well, you've been very passionate in the areas that I've worked with you in, and it was no surprise to me when you've had this other new passion and it just kind of came really natural to you. But I think people might be interested to know what inspired you to actually write Triangle.
That's a really important question and a really good question, Sam. So about a couple years ago, I was in a very difficult time in my life where, well, I guess I should start by saying there was a lot of things that were very wonderful about my life. I had all the things that the world had taught me would make me happy. I had a husband that loved me. I had a home, a beautiful home, and I had a career that I loved. And I was just checking off all these boxes, and I realized one day that despite all of that, I really actually wasn't happy. I was actually very unhappy. And it took me a lot of thinking to try to figure out why that was. And I decided to start a yoga practice. And that was a couple years ago. And I had done yoga. I had a yoga practice on and off for years before that. But this time I really wanted to stick to it because I knew it was something that had helped me in the past. And with that, I started to feel something open up in my brain. I just felt like I was connecting better with myself and understanding things about myself a little bit better. I also started reconnecting with nature, which is something I've always, growing up in the Pacific Northwest is something that I just have had the pleasure of enjoying my whole life. But then as I was checking off those boxes and filling my life with things that really didn't serve me, I neglected that part of joy that I got from being in nature. And even though it was right in my back door, literally, I didn't go on hikes. I didn't do that. So I started doing more of that. And with the combination of the yoga and getting out and really just connecting with myself and the world a little bit more, I came to the realization, strangely enough, that the reason why I wasn't happy was because I'm a lesbian and I had chosen a life that was completely contradictory to that. And that was why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. So I made the very difficult decision of, and I don't think the decision of coming out was difficult, but I came out to my husband and then to my family. And then we made the difficult decision of getting divorced, which was so complicated because this was a person that I had spent the last 7 years of my life otherwise very happy with. He was my best friend, and I still consider him to be a friend to me. But it wasn't the kind of love that marriage was meant for. And so it was very difficult. So then with that, I had to then go through the very difficult process of coming out. And at the same time, I had a couple family members that were dealing with some very difficult health issues. And I had to go through that where I felt like I was completely alone for the first time in my entire life, essentially. And actually, just before I actually came out, I started to write Triangle. And not, giving much away about the story necessarily, but it is a story about a woman who shares a somewhat similar experience to my own of coming out later in life after having been married. And it was really comforting to me to be able to tell a story that was similar to my own, because I didn't see that story reflected very well in mainstream media. And being able to hear a story that's like your own can be very comforting and reassuring, make you feel valued. And I both wanted to feel that myself, but I also hoped that someday I could share this story with someone else who was going through something similar to me, that could have that comfort and feel valued and being who they are.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's a powerful thing to see yourself elsewhere in the world and reflected in different ways. So thank you for sharing that and, writing the story. One thing I'm curious about is the title. What's some of the reasoning behind naming it Triangle? Could you go a little bit further into that?
Yeah, there's actually 3 reasons, ironically, for why I named it Triangle. And the first reason is maybe the most obvious, maybe that's just to me, but it's for triangle pose, or Trikonasana, which is the pose that the woman on the cover, who's supposed to be the main character of the story, that's the pose that she's doing in that picture. And the triangle pose is about strength and stability. And that's exactly what the main character in the story is seeking throughout the story. So I felt that was a very good connecting point. A second reason why I named the book Triangle is probably more obvious than the first one to my queer peers out there. The pink triangle on the cover is a symbol of LGBTQ plus pride. And for those of you who don't know this, that used to be, an upside down pink triangle was the, I guess, what gay men and trans men and women, honestly, were made to wear back in Nazi Germany, and they were actually put into death camps, similar to how Jewish people were put into death camps. And so that pink triangle was what they were branded with to symbolize that that's who they were. And so later, many decades later, that symbol was reclaimed by the LGBTQ plus community as a symbol of LGBTQ plus pride. And so I thought it was very fitting, and I do like the color pink. So not that that's why, but that's another reason for the name triangle. And then the third reason is maybe a little bit more abstract, but for the three areas of, or the three types of love that are focused on in this story, which are love and friendship, romantic love, and self-love.
Oh, thank you. I did think of something. I wanted to circle back there. You mentioned that you were writing this story while you went through your own journey. Is triangle a reflection of your journey in any way?
That's a question everybody asks, and my first answer is no, it is certainly not. That was, I know.
Getting the
No, it is not my story for a number of reasons, but I wanted to, part of the comforting part of writing Triangle was to write a story that was, while it was like my own in certain ways, it was very different than my own, and in some ways better than my own, which isn't to say that I think that I shouldn't be completely honest about the experience that I've had, but it was comforting for me to write something that was a little bit different than my own experience, to imagine the experience had it been slightly different. And then of course it's a complete fiction. There's no one in this story that's a real person. So sorry, Mom. There's no one in the story that's based off of you. But I will say, interestingly enough, and not planned at all, about halfway through writing Triangle, I realized that I had inadvertently put a piece of myself into each of the female characters in the story. And the main character is certainly not me, but in a way she symbolizes the empty vessel of a person I became by neglecting who I truly was. And then I put pieces of myself into the other female characters of the story that were parts of myself that I had let go, or that I had ignored, or that I had lost in the process of trying to be someone else. And I realized that I probably did this, and I probably should talk to my therapist and see what she thinks. But I think I did it because I was trying to comfort myself. I was trying to build a support system kind of within myself. And so I had somehow managed to create these characters that were like myself and comforting the main character of the story. So that's kind of, I guess, a good, maybe somewhat confusing overview of how that story connects with my own life personally.
I've heard that a lot of authors can find some catharsis when they're writing a story, especially when they find bits of themselves within it. So I think it's interesting that you shared that experience. All right, our next question that I have. One of your missions as an author is to inspire and follow a path towards social justice advocacy. What inspired you to take this stance, and how do you hope to achieve this as an author?
I'm so glad you asked. I have had the opportunity so many times throughout my young life and adult life to face the realities of racial injustice and social injustice in our country and in the world. But I have never actually taken any meaningful action against that injustice. And with all the events of the past year, I made myself face that reality and the neglect of taking any action on that reality, and made sure to first educate myself and unlearn certain things and do everything I can in this life to advocate for and support those who are struggling in this world simply for being who they are. And so one of my missions with publishing Triangle is that at least half of the proceeds from the sale of Triangle will go towards nonprofit organizations that support and advocate for LGBTQ plus rights and or racial justice. And I really do have a full heart in that effort. And I do hope that my readers will take part in helping me through that process, as far as tell me about organizations that you want to see supported. Maybe there's an organization in your community, maybe there's an organization you really care about. I do actually have a place on my website for anybody, whether you read my book or not, to make recommendations to me of where you want to see the money gained from the sale of this book donated to. So I encourage you to check that out if you haven't done so already.
You heard it, everybody. You get to tell Bianca how to spend her money. No, the proceeds of the book are going to amazing causes, and thank you so much for your support in that arena. I know from working with you and being friends with you that it's something you're truly passionate about. And if you haven't seen her Facebook page for her books, and being an author, I should say, I've seen some pretty cool bookmarks that you're using with your books, and I think that those showcase some pretty cool things. So definitely recommend to check that out if you haven't yet. And my last question for the intense portion, or at least this portion, I'm interested to know more about the audience. Because Triangle contains LGBTQ plus themes, did you write this story primarily for that audience?
No, I did not actually. I did explain a little earlier how I kind of wrote this as a comfort to myself during my coming out process. And I also wrote it with the hope that someone like me could listen to the story, be comforted, and feel accepted by it. But in all honesty, I wrote this story for everybody, because the two core concepts of this story aren't the LGBT themes. It's a story about self-discovery and showing up as the true and best self. And I think all of us can relate to. So I really would encourage, especially people who don't identify with the LGBTQ plus community, to read this story. And just, I guess as a side note, I really think that it's important for all of us to read stories, experiences that
Bianca,
are.
could you pause for a moment? I'm sorry. I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. If you are unmuted, could you possibly mute yourself? It should be down at the bottom of your screen. I've just noticed Bianca's can't quite hear everything that you're saying, so I apologize, Bianca, for cutting you off.
Yeah, I thought that was just
My, I want to see Bianca, but I can't.
And Jonah, if you're on, could you check everyone's mics to make sure that we're muted? Well, hopefully not me and Bianca.
I got your back.
Thank you so much. All right.
Okay,
Again,
we
I'm
should be
so
good.
sorry. Thank you. Sorry again for cutting you off, Bianca. Did you want to recap what you were talking about?
Yeah, I can say the last bit again. So I really do truly believe and really know the value of hearing a story that's different from your own. I think stories help us understand things differently than necessarily just hearing the facts about something. Facts are very important, but I feel like hearing a story helps us feel what the characters are feeling, and That's why I strongly encourage anybody to find stories to read that are telling the story of an experience that is different than their own, to maybe get a better understanding of others in the world around them.
It can be very powerful to get a new perspective. And I think, I've seen snippets of your story, and I think that you do and capture that very well. So thank you for answering some of my questions and helping the audience get to know you a little bit more. But I wanted to transition and do something a little fun here. Well, fun for me. I'm hoping it'll be fun for you because so essentially, imagine that you're in a dark room with a light on your face and you have to answer questions really, really quickly. So we're going to do 10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
All right, hold on. I have to put the water.
Okay. Going to be a speed round.
I'm ready.
All right. What was your favorite book growing up?
The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman.
Nice. What's the last show that you binged on and loved?
Oh, this is going to be a little bit stereotypical, but it was The L Word, Generation Q.
I have not seen that one. I'm going to have to. All right. Next one. Describe yourself in 3 words. No hyphenating. I'm just kidding.
Creative for sure. Adventurous and curious.
I'm curious. Oh, I like that word. All right. What is something that people often get wrong about you?
My sexuality. I got that wrong about myself, in fact, for a long time. So,
well, good to know. All right. Since I know you love food and nutrition so much, what's your favorite meal?
Definitely some kind of curry over rice with a nice ice cold crisp beer.
Very nice choice. All right, give us a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that brings you great joy.
Coffee. Any moment that has coffee in it, but to be more specific, before the pandemic, my favorite thing to do was go to one of the local coffee shops and sip a coffee, looking outside on a probably very rainy day and just watching people walk by while I'm drinking my coffee. And that's like pure joy to me.
Spoken like a true Washingtonian slash Seattle Olympian. Yes, definitely coffee. All right, next question. What's on your nightstand right now?
Amethyst crystal. Probably like 5 or 6 hair ties because I forget to take my hair down before I go to bed. Probably like a pair of earrings that I forgot to take out of my ears before I went to bed. And a journal, of course. I always have
a journal, of course, yes. All right, what's one of the things that you've put on your bucket list?
I was hoping to cross this off my bucket list this past year, but didn't happen. Well, actually, I guess I've kind of been working on it. I want to become fluent in Spanish. I do know quite a bit of Spanish, and I get to use it periodically, but I've never been fluent. And so I have this vision of like going to Mexico and just living there for a month and just immersing myself and forcing myself to learn it. Because I'm certain that's probably the only way I'm going to be able to become fluent is if I put myself in the environment where I have to speak it. So
exactly.
And a trip to Mexico sounds lovely right now. So
yeah, especially with all the rain. Okay, this one's a little sentimental. Who do you admire most?
I would say you, Sam, but since I know my mom's on, I should probably say my mom. My
It's
mom,
definitely you, Mom.
yeah, my mom's awesome.
All right, and last one's another sentimental one, but I think it's a great one. What is the one thing that you're deeply grateful for right now?
Well, my health, but even more so my family's health. You know, knock on wood, they've stayed healthy through the pandemic, and they're all close by. Well, my immediate family is close by, so I've even been able to do like social distance walks with my sister from time to time, and so I'm very fortunate that my family is healthy, and I'm so grateful for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for participating in that little rapid fire question session. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now to you to give us a little reading and an excerpt from Triangle.
Absolutely. So I have like 3 screens going on right now. So if I look confused, that's why. All right. So I'm going to do just a brief reading from Triangle. It looks like we're doing pretty good on time. So, all right. The farther along I climbed, the quieter my mind became. I watched the trail in front of me and finally found a rhythm in my steps, upward and onward. My breath steadied and my attention broadened to the rich smell of the bark on the trees and the sweet floral essence that perfumed the air. I captured glimpses of small critters wrestling on the ground and in the trees. I noticed the way the rays of sunlight parted between the tree trunks and caught the surface of the leaves in such a way that made them seem to glow like neon. A couple groups of people passed me going in the opposite direction, already on their descent. By my calculation, at the number of cars I had seen in the parking lot, I was the only person left on the trail, at least from this point on. Knowing I was alone out here was a little bit frightening, but at the same time, exhilarating. I couldn't recall a time I had ever gone on a hike and been the only person on the trail. Usually, I only hiked when I went with someone else. And even then, there were always other people somewhere along the trail. Then a fleeting thought occurred to me. What if I fall and hurt myself, and there is no one around to hear my cries? Then I consoled myself, realizing that was unlikely. Technically, I could choke on a peanut in the safety of my apartment when no one was around and die, but I certainly wasn't afraid of eating alone. And so I moved forward with an added sense of adventure in my step. The farther up I climbed, the more snow cover there was on and around the trail. I took my trekking poles out of my backpack to help manage my footing around the half-melted patches of snow and ice. In some places, the entire trail was covered with snow, and the only way to know which way to go was by following the trodden path of footsteps of those who'd hiked up before me. The trees started to thin out, and I could see the blue sky in the opening onto the ridgeline just ahead of me. With a burst of excitement giving me an extra push, I moved faster. I carefully maneuvered around the snow and mud covering most of the path. Then, just as I had feared earlier, I lost my footing. My foot caught a solid piece of ice and I slipped. I was not prepared to catch myself and stumbled off the side of the trail and tumbled about 20 feet down the slope when I finally managed to grab onto a low-hanging tree branch to stop myself. Adrenaline coursed through my veins and my heart pounded in my ears. I checked myself for injury. I wiggled both of my feet to check for any twists or sprains. I checked my arms for any breaks or abrasions. I searched for any sharp pains throughout my body that would indicate some sort of injury, but there was nothing. Aside from some scratches on my arms, I was okay. The terror of the experience overwhelmed me. and I began to cry. I felt like a child crying from a bumped head or a scratched knee. I felt the vulnerability of being alone out here. I felt the vulnerability of being alone. I didn't have someone to reach out to offer me a helping hand. You're okay, I consoled myself. You're okay. I wiped the tears from my eyes and carefully stood back up, and one step at a time climbed up the steep wall of ferns I had just plowed through. I made my way back onto the trail and looked down the trail in both directions. Should I turn back? I asked myself. If I had fallen once and almost seriously injured myself, should I risk moving forward? I was too close to turn back now. I could practically see the top. I needed to keep going. Moving more carefully now and watching more closely for patches of ice, I treaded onward up the trail. The more the trees thinned, the more the sun reached the trail's surface, which had resulted in more snowmelt than there was in the thick of the forest. Without any more obstacles, I finally reached the wide open space at the top of the trail's crest. A cool breeze tickled my face, which glistened with sweat. I started to walk along the ridgeline, and to my left was a full, crystal clear view of Mount Rainier. I was so close, you could almost smell it. I could see all the sharp stony edges poking through the white snow that covered it from its base to its peak. Even though I had probably looked at Mount Rainier over 1,000 times, it never ceased to take my breath away and give reason to stop and admire the rarity of its beauty. After a brief moment of pause, I continued along the path, knowing there was more yet to come. The trail curved around a bend at the base of a large mound protruding about another 100 feet above the trail. I vaguely recalled something about this mound. I thought my mom and I had climbed it when we did this hike together many years ago. And sure enough, I came to a slightly overgrown and very steep path off the side of the main trail that led up to the mound's point. It was clear that not many had taken this path, likely due to its rather steep incline. It wasn't like you couldn't get a beautiful view from the lower portion of the ridgeline, but the view at the top would be completely unobstructed. The urge to continue up to the top had already overcome me, so there was no turning back now. Without further contemplation, I stepped up onto the side trail and started the climb. In the pictures from the hike I had looked at this morning, I recalled the ground cover on the ridgeline was mostly brown and in decay. It must have been late fall when I had gone on this hike with my mother. Now there were beautiful yellow and purple flowers and junipers that speckled its surface. At times, I needed to kneel down and crawl up some spots slick with loose gravel. I grabbed onto roots and rocks to stabilize myself as I moved farther upward. I kept my vision up the trail in front of me, knowing my occasional fear of heights might kick in if I looked to see how high up I was. I was cautious, but I was not afraid of falling. I trusted myself. As the trail began to level out, I knew I was close to the top. I could see the top of Mount Rainier start to peek over the top of the hill. Finally, I reached a bare, rocky surface at the top of the point, and then, without hesitation, turned around to take in the full spectrum of the view. Behind me was a glorious view of Mount Adams, with Mount St. Helens just off in the distance. And far off on the horizon, I could barely make out the point of Mount Hood in Oregon. I took a few spins around to take in the view again. Never had I seen such a beautiful sight. I took off my backpack, set down my trekking poles, and sat on the stone surface beneath my feet. Everything was so still and silent, except for the slight whispering of the treetops blowing in the wind. It was as though the forest and the mountains were asleep, and I had tiptoed my way up here, not disturbing their slumber. And now I got to watch them in their sweet sleep. If it weren't for the light rush of water echoing through the valleys, a river in the distance, this place might fall so silent it would cease to exist. I felt at home in this place. It felt like it lived and breathed in this moment just for me. I was completely myself without judgment. Even though I was there completely alone, I was not alone. I felt surrounded by life. The life within all of the things around me and the life within myself. I felt the spaces in my heart that at times felt empty when I was back in the city, surrounded by people. Now these spaces were wide open and filling up with each breath of fresh air and each glimpse over the horizon. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again if I can figure out how to do that. And I want to do a raffle drawing for folks that came today. I think I got everybody here in the raffle, but yes, I'm just going to go with that. So I'm going to share my screen again. One. Yay, it worked. Okay, so let's skip ahead here for a sec. All right, so I am going to spin the wheel. So if you are here and, well, if you're here, you are automatically in the raffle, and it's done randomly. I'm having the computer do it for me, so FYI, I'm not going to cheat. So if I pick like my sister or something, I swear I didn't do it on purpose. Okay, so let's do this. Is Heidi here by any chance? I don't think I saw Heidi here. Okay.
I don't see a Heidi.
Okay. Well, if I call your name, just FYI, folks, shout out so that I know that you're here. I'm going to spin it again. Is Kristen here? Kristen Rubis? Maybe not. Okay, you gotta act fast, folks. If I call your name, I'm gonna give it like 2 seconds. And I might spin this like 10 times at this point. Okay. Aileen, are you here?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, well, you are the lucky winner of, I have it right here, of this lovely gift basket.
Oh.
And if I'm lucky enough, I might get to deliver it to you in person. So.
Oh my gosh, come anytime. We have the puppy now too. So
Oh my
please
gosh,
visit.
I'm totally coming now. Okay.
Yay. I loved your reading, by the way. I don't want to blow up your chat, but
Oh,
it was very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, I look forward to seeing you soon with your goodies, and I will be expecting puppy love.
Here we are. Hi.
All right, so that's the raffle, and I just want to, real quick here, share with you all how you can connect with me on social media and my website. And you can email me too. I'd love to connect with you if you have any questions or if you have any comments or and then again, if you have any suggestions for nonprofit organizations that you want need to donate to, definitely check out my website and get in touch with me. But thank you all so much for being here, and thank you so much, Jonah, and thank you like times infinity time to Sam, who you have just been such a great supporter to me throughout this whole process. And I feel like I'm like cheating because you do this for your job and you get paid, but now you're doing it for me for free. So there will be like major like gifts and like dinner cooking involved like when the time comes. So just so you know. But thank you all for being here, and I will pass it back over to Jonah to wrap things up.
All right. Hi, everyone, again. So thank you, Bianca and Sam, for doing this today. Oh my gosh, it was such a pleasure. Sam, you basically did the thing I usually have to do here, so it was nice taking a break. I like the rapid fire thing. I think I might steal that for the future.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's good. Okay, so you can get Triangle at Bianca's website, or there are 2 copies here and more probably coming at Orca Books in downtown Olympia. This video will be up probably in about a day or 2. So in case someone you know missed it or something, you can send them that way. We have it on YouTube. And yeah, thank you guys again. Bianca, it was lovely. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you all so much for hosting this event. I really appreciate you all.
It's our pleasure. All right. Well, I wish you all a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.